Hello, I'm Karen Adams, curator of art at OMCA, talking to you from my living room. We're all living through unprecedented times, trying to make sense of the future, what comes next. My thoughts are naturally going to the past, thinking about what I've done and what I have to be grateful for in the here and now. A couple of years ago, I had the great honor of working on an exhibition about the artist J.B. Blunk, who built his life and career off the land around his home in Inverness, California. He's also the maker of one of the most significant artworks in the collection at the Oakland Museum, a monumental sculpture called The Planet, which he conceived of as a seating sculpture. It's a gathering spot. It's essential that people contribute to the meaning of it by sitting on it, appreciating it, making it complete by interacting with it. And that was a really radical idea when it came into the collection in 1968, before the museum actually opened in '69. The building was completed around this incredible sculpture. And when I first came to work at the museum, I think I took it for granted. I didn't really, I couldn't imagine the museum without it, and maybe I didn't completely appreciate what an incredible thing it actually was, and I didn't know much about the man who had created it. So I hope you enjoy looking at this video and maybe think about, as we're all stuck inside, what the land around you means to you and what you might make of it. Thank you.
There was a time in my life when I didn't consider myself an artist. It was something I wanted to be someday. I was just a maker of objects and things. I can't say why I make things in many instances. I just make them, and I have to. And if I couldn't, then I would really find it very difficult to live, I know.
He was just one of those people who was endlessly creative. He just breathed making things. It was absolutely his raison d'etre. What to know about JB is really what to see about JB. He was the person who is known through what he made.
J.B. Blunk lives and works in Inverness in Marin County, just north of San Francisco. His craft and his geographical location are closely tied together because he works in wood. Gigantic redwood burls that the loggers leave behind, and huge pieces of driftwood that wash up on the nearby beaches. His basic tool is a chainsaw.
His connection to natural materials was profound and really directed his creative practice. You know, his innate understanding of wood as a material, from the massive redwood burls to the local clay that he would source and make ceramics with.
Outside, there's still remnants of a vast, always changing collection of different stones and different roots and even scraps.
In terms of his collections of stuff, rocks and collections of wood, or scraps that were cut from projects, they were all really important. And some he just wanted around for some kind of inspiration, or just seeing a shape or something to catch his eye and have a spark.
His time in Japan deeply influenced him as a man and an artist, and he carried that across to California and into the construction of this home and the raising of our family.
This is a fascinating man who's lived a very unusual, unconventional life, very self-sufficient, very tuned in to nature and beauty.
Form is what primarily motivates my selection. The forms are very exciting for me on certain parts of the beaches. You can't explain why. It evokes something in me that is already there. It either is or it isn't for you. It can be the same with people, the same way with your work.
You could almost say that he was a creative addict. He just had to be making things. It was what gave his life meaning.
JB would always say learning by doing is best, and he called it the primary process.
I bought my first chainsaw to cut down the trees to build a house, to clear the land to build a house. And then later, I at times would cut a lot of wood for fireplace wood for other people.
He worked 7 days a week. The studio is very close to the home, about a 30-second walk. So he would work probably from about 7 in the morning till 4 o'clock. He always took a tea break at 4 o'clock, 4 to 5. Then he'd go back to the studio until dinner. His life in the home was part of his practice, was his practice.
A lot of our time together as a young family was to go to the beach. The beach was a tremendous resource to pick up driftwood and see things and try to unpack mysteries of things that floated up.
He was always interested in what was going on inside of him, and you know, he lived here in this very quiet space, away from the noise of the world.
I live by the sea. I do it by choice. It's always a very moving experience for me to go to the beach. There's always some discovery to make there.
I just felt like his whole approach was both contemplative and active simultaneously. I didn't feel like it was something that I needed to know about what he was doing and why, and what he was leaving and what he intended to take away. For me, it was just, here was this amazing creation that was happening before my eyes, and I understood where it was going, and that, you know, there were areas that he was intentionally making comfortable and accessible, not just in a tactile way to reach out and touch with your hands, but to actually sit on.
Working on a big scale is really different because you're crawling all over the piece rather than having it right in front of you. That big piece at Greens, that big upside-down root, actually goes through the floor another 3 feet down. So we brought the roughed out pieces in on the floor, and we finished it in Greens, doing all the small chainsawing, sanding, everything in Greens while they were building the restaurant around it.
I mean, many people hate chainsaws because that's a tool that cuts down the forests. And it's revolutionized the logging industry. It's revolutionized it because you can cut down so many trees so fast. One man cut them up and get them off to the mill. And in that way, some people look at it as a savage, brutal tool. Well, it isn't a tool, it's what man does with the tool.
One of JB's sayings that really stuck with me over the years, and he kept saying it a lot, was never say never. Be open to all the mistakes, be open to the unexpected things that you find in the wood, rot, whatever. Just be open and flow with it, but just keep working, keep the working process going. Through hard times, through his hard times, through my hard times, he would advise me, just keep doing the work, and the work will be the healing.
There's an enormous amount of independence demonstrated by my father's lifestyle that I think is appealing to artists. The fact that he wasn't in the center of a major metropolitan city, working closely with galleries or museums, that he was really doing his own thing on his own terms.
I think what motivated JB was bringing out the life, the inner life of objects, whether it was burl trees or stones or clay. It was connecting a feeling of shared life between him, his soul, and this material object. He was creating a relationship with something alive, and he was bringing it out. You can see, if you really get to know him and his work, that he was ahead of his time.
What I would say to people who are strangers to his work is that it's both primal and playful at the same time. And that's its real power.